So what would you do if you're St. Paul, mission from God, this tough adversity? What would you do? What do you think St. Paul would do? St. Paul did exactly what you and I would do. We'd ask God to get rid of it. He prayed. Verse 8, concerning this thing, I pleaded with the Lord 3 times that it might depart from me. Now, when you read this, you may read this and say, okay, St. Paul prayed 3 times. Means like he woke up in the morning and said, please God, make the day a good day. And then he, before lunch, and please God, bless this food and let the pain go away. And then maybe at dinner time, oh yeah, that's not what it means 3 times. When St. Paul says, pleaded with the Lord 3 times, it means 3 seasons of life. It means like, you know what? It's like me calling Father Timothy and say, you know what? I'm off for the next couple months. I need to focus on something. I go away on a retreat. I go to a place by myself and I beg God and I plead God and I'm fasting and I'm on my knees every single day and I'm believing in faith that God is going to move, God's going to move, God's going to move. Answer is nothing. And then I go back to life. And then you know what? A year later, or 2 years later, I'm like, okay, God, I read this verse about faith and asking you shall receive in the mountain thing. So again, another season of life dedicated to this and focused and pleading and nothing. And it says 3 times he did that. And God finally answers after the 3rd time. It works. His pleading gets him an answer. But you may not like what the answer is. He said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. What does that answer mean? You come to me and say, please, Father Anthony, give me this. And I do nothing. Then you ask me again, please, Father Anthony, give me this. And I do nothing. They say, please, Father Anthony, give me this. And I say, my grace is sufficient for you. Please visit me. My grace is sufficient for you. Please give me $1. My grace is sufficient for you. It means no. It's a polite way to say no. But he's basically saying here, remember earlier I said it's painful, it's humiliating, and it's debilitating? Add a 4th characteristic. It's permanent. It's not going away. But he tells him something else. When he says, my grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in weakness, he tells him something that he doesn't understand, and we certainly don't understand either. But what he tells him is that just because I'm going to leave this in your life, I'm not going to remove this from your life, doesn't mean I'm not working in your life. Doesn't mean I left you. Doesn't mean you're outside of my plan. Doesn't mean that you're by yourself. In fact, it's the exact opposite. What he's saying is through this, I'm actually going to be working even more in your life. Like the way I think of it as a wound that God gives us, a wound that God gives us. And we're like, God, please remove this wound. Please remove this wound. Please remove it. And God's saying, you know what? Not only I'm not going to remove this wound, but this wound is going to become a source of blessing in your life. This wound is actually going to become a fountain of my grace in your life. Because my grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. And no matter how painful it is, and I realize it's painful, I get it, it's painful. No matter how painful it is, Paul, just trust me, I am going to be most glorified in your life through that. It's painful, get rid of it. I know you want me to get rid of it. But that's going to be the source of my greatest work in you and through you for the rest of your life. That's why it's a gift with a purpose. St. Paul hears that, begging God, pleading with God. God says no. How does St. Paul respond? He says, therefore, most gladly, I will rather boast in my infirmities that the power of Christ may rest upon me. I beg your pardon. You got the eye juice oozing out. You got the epilepsy thing. You got the headaches, whatever it may be. Embarrassing, humiliating, painful, permanent. You got this. And what you're saying is, not only I'm not going to hide it, not only I'm not ashamed of it, not only I'm not going to resist it, I'm actually going to brag about it. And people are going to say, oh, I heard you had that thing. Yeah, let me tell you. Yeah, you see, you want to come look. It's disgusting. Come look. Take a picture. That's what he's saying. He said, I'm proud of it. I boast in it. Why? Look, it doesn't make any sense. I'm going to put it up here on the screen. I'm going to put something that I don't understand and you don't understand, but I promise you it's true. Embracing your weakness as a gift is the only way to unleash God's power upon it. That's a good one. Let me say that one again. Embracing your weakness as a gift is the only way to unleash God's power upon it. Yes, that's worthy of taking a picture. Thank you so much. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I certainly don't like it. But truth is truth. That's what I said in the beginning, is you don't have to listen to what I'm saying, but I have to tell you the truth. And the truth is you got this thing. You got this pain. You got this wound. You got this adversity. You got this thing. What do you do when there's nothing you can do? What you have the option to do, not the forcing. You have the option to embrace it as a gift from God with a purpose and something behind it. And I'm telling you, when you do that, that's the only way. When you do that, then somehow it opens the floodgates for God to be glorified in it. It unleashes God's power upon this. As much as you resist it, and as much as you hate it, and get it away from me, and I can't stand that, then basically you're going through it, but you're not allowing God's grace to be unleashed upon it. But when you embrace it, when you accept it, you open the door for something great to happen. Now, this isn't the American way. This isn't the technology way. The American technology way is find a solution. Do some research. There's got to be a blog about it. There's got to be something. And you can do that all day and all night. I'll tell you what else is not the godly way, which you might think is, and I'm going to tell you something that may confuse you. You may say when you're in this situation, okay, that's great, Father Anthony, but what about faith? What about faith? I believe God is going to heal. I believe God is going to solve. What about faith? Let me say this as kindly as possible. Your problem, your pain, what you want to say, if I had more faith, it's not about faith. Do you want to know why I know for a fact that faith doesn't solve all problems? Because I know St. Paul had a lot of faith. He's the guy who wrote about faith. So if just having enough faith was a criteria to live an adversity-free life, he'd have had it. But he had a harder life than me and you, so it's not just faith. This is the part, don't be offended by me. I'm just speaking the truth right here. I'm the insurance guy. You don't have to accept what I'm saying, okay? Sometimes faith, pray more, believe more, faith, sometimes is an excuse to live a selfish life. It's an excuse to not accept what God is putting in my life. It's an excuse that I don't want any adversity. Sometimes. And we got to be honest about that. Because the truth is, for St. Paul, it wasn't about faith. It wasn't about believe more, then I'll solve it. It was about Paul. This is my work in your life. This is how I'm going to be glorified in you. This is part of your story. See, you want, just like me, you want your story. I want my story to be, my strength is made perfect in strength. That's what I want. Like, I want God to give me strength, God to give me great things, and God to be glorified in that. Make me the richest person with the most amount of stuff and be glorified in that. Like, that's a win-win. Everybody wins. That's not how it works. God says, for my glory to be the most in your life, Paul, it takes this thorn in the flesh. And maybe for God to be glorified in your life, it takes a thorn in the flesh too.